Oh, good. Here comes Ben. So we're just gonna let people roll in. It's a weird morning out there in the world. We were just talking about there's LA. There's just trees down everywhere. All the power's out. It is climate Armageddon in real time. It feels like here. Semis down, roads closed, schools closed, everything's canceled. I was out in it actually last night and like a dum dum, even though there was wind advisories, but I was like, oh, Santa Ana's, Shmana Ana's, and power went out in the restaurant I was in, and all the way home, no street lights, and it felt like we were in a
Wow.
tornado. Anybody else down here experiencing the wild winds? You said Isabel, it's okay down there?
Yeah, actually. I mean, there have been some little small fires. They're always on top of it. And except for that, I actually like the Santa Anas. I love that weather. Just
Yeah.
not the fires. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe get a little sprinkle of snow finally.
Oh, that would be
Yeah, in the mountains. Well, hi everybody. Welcome on in. Happy 2025, I think. Oh, good. Bryce is here on his phone. I don't know if we'll get Shasta today. She's been so busy lately. Hopefully she does come. Hey, Bryce, I hear your power's out. It's crazy town over here. I hope you're okay. Are you okay over there, Bryce? Oh, maybe not. All right, well, let's go ahead and kick off. Lori's going to run most of this meeting today, but let me get us going. Oh, good. Bryce says yes. Let's go to the next slide.
Sorry,
That's okay.
I have terrible. There we go.
All right, so just to remind everybody what we're here to do together today for whatever this is, we've been doing for over, I don't know, something like 3 years. We connect national health and climate data experts and invite you all to come together and help us exchange knowledge on priority tribal adaptation and resilience data needs, share tools, practices, ideas, and lessons learned from the field. And we try to explore opportunities to develop and scale up solutions to address tribal resilience data needs. So these are your tribal climate resilience data partners. And so we get together every couple months now. We're going to do the same agenda we normally do, which we start off by highlighting anybody who's brand new, who has not come to one of these before. And I actually think I see one person that's maybe brand new. Do I say your name as Kamal?
My
Oh,
name is,
good.
but thank you. Yeah, I can introduce myself real quick.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Komal Banghia. I'm a research scientist at the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment. I work with Laura August and Zoe, who's also on this call, I think. And we work on Cal Virus Screen, and I in particular work on our drinking water indicator. And this next version that we're working on, we are looking into incorporating more tribal information. And so I'm just here to learn as much as I can. And hopefully in the future we can, collaborate and share what we're working on.
sorry about that.
Thank you.
Awesome. I'm so glad you're here. And we should talk about this, and we will under member updates. It's a little bit more about some of the work we're doing around water data. So maybe you can join us. I think that's everybody who's new. Everyone else, if you could just introduce yourself over chat. We all are getting to know each other pretty well by now. So today, Lori was able to coordinate with Anna Holder with the State Water Resources Control Board, and she's going to talk to us. She gave us a little bit of information at our last meeting. We wanted to give her a lot more time to talk about tribal data, water data initiatives. So that's our main meat of the day after we do our member announcements. And then, Lori, do you want to talk about this one, this discussion you want to have?
Yeah, I'm hoping to have a little bit of a discussion about possible needs of federal partners and others during the next administration. Is there in any way people with the state or in outside organizations can support our federal partners to make sure that the data stays.
Yeah, like download Palooza probably right now. That makes it sound a lot more fun than it is. Okay, that's a good topic. So that's our goal for today. Any questions on our agenda or what we're here to do? All right, let's go to member announcements. Member announcements is usually a time that we just take up front for anybody who has anything they think is relevant to this group. Is it tribal, climate change, health, resilience, and data related that folks in this group should know. This helps us all kind of stay in the loop of the latest and greatest news or opportunities, or even opportunities to comment or advise. So maybe there's a new tool out there or some kind of training, or there's or you're working on something data related and you want to share it. So that's the time that we spend up front here.
I got something, at least I wanted to pass on.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else has saw it, but it came up on one of the other climate related meetings I go to. And it was a recent report out of the California Department of Insurance on the impacts of extreme heat to California's people, infrastructure, and economy. And it was really interesting because it focused on analysis of costs, different kinds of costs, based on some of the most impactful heat event that spanned like 11 years or so. So I found it very interesting to read, and it's been something that I just went, oh, thank you for coming up, describing the costs, and insurance is what they'll cover and what they'll not, and the impacts on health, on manufacturing, agriculture, blah, 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 related to heat events. So anyway, I dropped the link in there to the actual document in case anybody's interested.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Who else? I think maybe PHI, we have some updates, or we can give a little update on what we're working on together. Speaking of heat, I don't know, Alex, if you feel up for that, or I can do it.
If you don't mind it, I'm a little more hands-off on that project.
Yeah, I know you haven't been in the meetings. Lori and I have been working with folks at PHI with Tribal Climate Health Project. We got a grant through Paula, and we are in the process of taking their Healthy Places Index tool and creating some new functionality for a tribal extreme heat tool that is incorporating a lot of what we have built through our easy tool at Tribal Climate Health Project. So helping to kind of work out a platform that will be supportive of resilience decision making for California tribes, and then we'll be piloting that or demoing that with some tribes and making sure that what we're building is useful. But this first iteration is focused specifically on extreme heat, and so that's with the CEC Tribal Research Grant that we received. Anything else you want to share there, Lori? No, I think maybe in the future when we have something to demo, this is a group that we'd like to share it with. Okay, who else? Lori, is there anything you want to share from our end on this year?
No, maybe Ben could give an update on the work with the fire weather test bed.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Sure. Hey, everyone. Let's see. So some of you have probably heard about our tribal advisor interviews that we did last fall with 10 of the Tribal Climate Health Project tribal advisors. So we did those interviews, and then in the past couple months, Emily Wells, our social scientist, whereas I'm the physical scientist in the fire weather test beds user needs assessment team, we've been coding those interviews up. So Emily has taught me how to do social science and read through the interview transcripts and code up different topics and things that people were talking about. And then we do that for all of the different interviews, and then we convene and identify key themes that have been coming up. And so now we're at the stage of we've done all the coding, read through everyone's interviews many, many times, And we have a number of themes that we're going to be working through and probably are going to be able to share more broadly with this group in the coming months. So very, very soon we will have some awesome info, and we're finding things are a little different than maybe we expected to hear and see. And so I think there's some really, really neat findings that we're excited to share soon. So stay tuned for that.
Thank you, Ben. And Bryce, I imagine you're going to be interested in that information on your end. I don't know if you have any updates from on your end. Bryce, you want to share with the group from LCI? Or maybe it's just a rough day.
I don't know that he's going to be able to share
Yeah.
today just because of the situation down there.
Mm-hmm. No problem. One of the things we're going to be working on too with Tribal Climate Health Project this year, we're going to be shifting a focus from sort of more general data gaps, like trying to resolve and provide support for data access, is kind of diving deep on wildfire and water. And so Lori and I are going to be pulling together working groups of experts in agencies, but other institutions as well. The goal of it is to really identify the best, latest, and greatest and most meaningful data that is available for tribes to help them understand the blind spots. These are two big blind spot areas for a lot of California tribes, meaning water security, water supply. How do we help tribes know in short and long term what water security issues they're facing and how quickly they're going to face them? And wildfire health. So kind of looking more broadly at some of the health effects of wildfire smoke specifically. And so trying to get a handle on the best information available to California tribes, doing an analysis, maybe some original analysis if it's raw data that we can make more user-friendly for tribes. And then sort of it's like a status update that we can share with policymakers around where there is not enough good data to help tribes make good decisions. So that's the goal, one of our goals for this year. And if that's something that you think would be fun to help us with, and you might want to sit on a work group, you would be welcome to do so. And you could just put something in the chat to let us know, or raise your hand and let us know if you think you might have something to offer, something to contribute to that process. All right, yeah, and Ben's already on board. You can run, but you can't hide. But I am hoping maybe Bryce, Kamal, you might be folks that might be interested in thinking about this with us. Okay, anyone else? Okay. Oh, maybe moi. I will take you, Isabel. Thank you. All right. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Bryce. Okay. I think maybe that's good for member announcements because we've got a good speaker today. Lori, I'll leave it to you to introduce.
I think I first met Anna. I might have met her earlier, but I met her at Tribal EPA, and I was really impressed not only with the work that the Water Resources Control Board is doing, but the way that Anna specifically worked with tribes in a really collaborative way. And so I love that. I'm going to stop my screen share and let Anna take over with her own slides. Take away.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that kind introduction, Lori. Yeah, I think we first connected at Tribal EPA. Another hat that I wear is our program coordinator for our statewide bioaccumulation monitoring program. And so I work with the OEHA Fish Advisory crew, and we talk lovely things about you because you're so amazing when you were with OEHA. Anyway, my name is Anna Holder. My pronouns are she, her, and I am at the California State Water Resources Control Board. I'm our Open Data Science, Equity, and Tribal Coordinator. And that involves a lot of projects. But today I want to talk about a tribal water data map that we've been working on in collaboration with tribal partners for the past couple years. I'm going to try and keep it short and sweet, but we can dive deeper, do demos, whatever, as time allows. So I want to just kind of give a grounding on why we started this project, where it came from. The office that I'm in at the Water Boards is the Office of Information Management and Analysis, which is lovely government word salad that I want to break down and explain what our scope is and what our role is at the Water Boards. And then we'll talk about, ideas of how we think folks can use the map, an introduction to the different components of the map, including a user manual and a project tracker, and how to provide feedback, and then whatever you want to talk about. So this project started a couple years ago. One of my close partners is Sarah Ryan from the Big Valley Band of Pomo Indians. And we have semi-regular just check-ins to see like what she's working on that I can support, what we're working on together. And one of the things that came up, she pulled up this PDF of a map from years ago and said, we want this, but interactive and with more data that is important to tribes. There's so much environmental data out there, as you all know, and it can take a lot of time and resources and capacity of tribes to go to the 42 million different websites and get the data that they need. And so how can we provide access to data that's already open and accessible in a way that's a little bit more user-friendly and like a one-stop shop? That initiated the Tribal Water Data Initiative's webpage and this map that we've been building and curating over time. And the map in particular, Sarah Ryan has been a close partner and provides feedback on a regular basis, but we also got early feedback from Mayo and Shasta. We regularly go to the US EPA Region 9 RTAC, California Issues Work Group, at least once a year to provide an update and get more feedback on what's missing or what we want to see next. As Lori mentioned, I've given talks on this at the annual Tribal EPA conference and the California Tribal Beneficial Uses Strategic Planning Caucus. This map actually is moved forward mostly by our interns and fellows in our office. And so there's usually a lull in the fall, but in summer or when we get a new fellow that's a year-long fellow, we make a lot of progress. And just a shout out to all of the fellows listed on the screen. Each one was critical in their contributions to this map. And every time we get a new fellow or intern, more energy and a new lens is added to the map, which I think makes it better and better over time. So if you aren't familiar with the Water Boards, I am at the State Board, which is represented by the teeny tiny star, the black star in the middle of the map. There are, the Water Board is actually 10 state agencies. And so there's the State Board where I am, and there's 9 regional water boards within the California Environmental Protection Agency. And although I work for the State Board, I work closely with folks in all of the 9 regional water boards. And the water boards, all 10 agencies have duties that cover water quality, water rights, drinking water, among many, many other things. OWIMA, the Office of Information Management and Analysis, is non-regulatory and has a few different broad categories in its scope. So we generate and manage our own data through our statewide surface water ambient monitoring programs, or SWAMP programs. And we support the rest of the organization with making the Water Board's data and information open and accessible to the public. We have a number of tribal and community engagement efforts that have a nexus with water data topics. Anything in OWIMA, if it's related to water and data, we're pumped about it. And so we have a lot of different projects going on. And as the office's tribal coordinator, I really like to find ways to make it easy for tribes to partner with us whenever that makes sense for them, and think about new projects that tribes might want to lead or co-lead with us in a way that's helpful to advance their work. And because of the nature of all of this work, we're always looking for and developing new partnerships within the water data community. And no matter what project we're part of, and particularly over the coming years, we're continually thinking about ways to use data to advance equity outcomes and to operationalize equity, inclusion, justice, and belonging into how we work. One of OEMA's efforts that we're going to talk about mostly today is our Tribal Water Data Initiatives project. The projects listed on the page are designed to build relationships with our tribal partners first and foremost. And whenever possible, we co-create these projects with our tribal government partners. The projects enable us to lower barriers to accessing water boards data and other publicly available data that is relevant to the tribal work, and make it simpler for tribes to use the data and resources that are of interest to them. We also, as I mentioned, like to include interns and fellows in these projects as much as we can. And when it's appropriate, it's not always appropriate to include, temporary staff in projects with our tribal government partners, but when it is appropriate and when it does fit, we like to include interns and fellows because they're usually really interested in doing something meaningful and impactful during their time with us. And any projects that we do with our tribal partners, that always fits the bill. They're very popular. One of the projects, as I mentioned, is our Tribal Water Data Map and associated user manual. That's actually kind of a misnomer. We need to rebrand it. It doesn't include any tribal water data, but it's data that's important and curated by our tribal partners. So it's confusing. If you have ideas on how to improve it, please let me know. I'm all ears. And like I mentioned, we've been working on this project with Sarah Ryan at the Big Valley Band of Pomo Indians, EPA, and others since 2022, and continue to develop the resource as we can. Its purpose is to be a one-stop shop data resource, and so far, it's slowly becoming a collection of data and mapping resources from the water boards and beyond that are publicly accessible and of interest to tribes doing water or other environmental or climate work. The user manual is a complement to the map itself and provides context and guidance on how to use the map and other resources that might be of interest. So presentations like this are always linked to the resources page and things like that. And full disclosure, we've actually had some maintenance going on with our Esri portals. And so a lot of updates need to be made to the map and the manual, but I'm hoping to get those done in the next week or two. So the next couple of slides, I'm borrowing and adapting from a presentation that Sarah Ryan and I gave last year, or I guess in 2023, about this. And a lot of these ideas really came from Sarah on how she thinks tribes can use the map to support their work, really understanding, which water board regions a tribe is interested in. Tribal lands and interests, as we know, do not intersect with other governmental boundaries. And so understanding what the connections are and who those contacts are can be really helpful if folks don't already know that. A big conversation with the water boards is beneficial uses, and in particular, tribal beneficial uses. So understanding which beneficial uses are designated to water bodies that are important to the tribe. And we actually added new layers recently that weren't on the map before. So folks can zoom in and click on a water body and see which beneficial uses have been designated. And have those water bodies been monitored and assessed in the most recent California Integrated Report. So this report generates the 303D and 305B lists. 303D list is like water bodies that have impairments, and that can trigger the process of TMDLs or restoration, or lots of other things. And that 2024 integrated report was finalized and added to the map. I think it has actually been approved by US EPA in the last couple of months. So that's up there as well. And then what other environmental or governmental data is of interest? So you can kind of overlay layers that are of interest to you and zoom in, zoom out, and figure out, you know, what you're interested in, understanding water quality and other environmental issues or hotspots in your area that you should be aware of. And this slide is pulled directly from Sarah's slides, but I think it's a great example of how she's using understanding basin plans, which are the documents that have the regulatory teeth of the regional boards. They have the water quality objectives and all of that good stuff. And how Sarah uses those basin plans and kind of keeps track of information like beneficial uses, water quality objectives, and that informs how she leads her monitoring programs at Big Valley EPA. So the tribal water data map is a screenshot is on the left and the user manual is on the right. There's links at the bottom of these slides, and I'm happy to share these with y'all as soon as we can. And so I'm gonna talk through each of these and do a little bit of a low quality demo because I don't trust my internet right now. But so we'll do it through slides. And as I go through things, I just want you to be aware that this is a QR code to a survey. And if, as we're talking about things, you're like, yeah, it'd be really nice if this map also included this data set, or any other feedback that you have on how to improve this. This QR code, there's no deadline to complete it. You can come back to it anytime. I have one colleague who keeps it kind of around, and anytime they're thinking about something, they'll just like brain dump it real quick into the survey, and that's really helpful. We have a list of ideas that we've already heard from our tribal community through the RTalk or the California Issues Work Group, or individual partners that I've had the opportunity to talk to about this. And so those are already listed, and there's like a checkbox for folks to say, yes, me too, we want to see this. And that helps us prioritize as we have resources. And then of course, if there's other data that you want to see. So keep that in mind as we go through the next bits. For the user manual, this is actually where I like to start because I can never remember the link to the map because it's long and gross URL. So I just go to the user manual first and click on the link there. But the key pages are the map guide, which that's one that needs to be updated because the version of Esri has updated. So anyway, but that'll show tips on how to use the map. We try and make this resource really accessible to folks that don't map, who don't data on a regular basis, thinking about maybe tribal leadership or staff who need to communicate with tribal leadership in a really easy and fast way. So providing quick demonstration screenshots on how to zoom in really quickly or change the transparency, how to open layers, that sort of thing. That's what the map guide contains. The layer guide, as we're developing this resource, we're getting a lot of different types of data and understanding, who the data steward is, how quickly it's updated, or what even the data layer contains. illustrating all of that in the map is difficult. And so the layer guide breaks down more information and shares more information about each layer. So folks can kind of look at the layer guide and then go to the map and have a complementary resource. And then, as I mentioned, the resources page has links to past presentations. As you all develop awesome data resources, we'd love to add them there as well. There's no single data resource to rule them all. They all have different purposes and benefits. And so we just want to use this manual as a way to make it easy for folks to find what they need quickly. So to open the map, I go to the user manual and click on that link. If you don't have Esri, an Esri license, that's totally fine. You don't need one. You can open in Map Viewer and it'll open on your browser, and you can kind of play around with the different layers. If you are a map head, as I love to say, and want to like open it in your own system, you can open in ArcGIS Desktop. The key features that I use are the layers tab, the base maps tab, and the legend tab. So the layers tab shows you what's available, and you can turn them on and off by clicking the little eyeball button. You can see in the image on the right, the 3.1 tribal land layers. 3.1.1, there's an eyeball with a line through it. So that means the layer is off. And then the other ones, you don't see anything. And that means the layer is on, which is counterintuitive, but I don't run Esri. So there you go. The base maps allow you to change the background. So the one shown is like the default view, but if you want to have satellite imagery or roads or whatever else, there's a long list of different backgrounds and base maps that are available, and you can switch to whatever one makes the most sense to you. And then the legend shows the symbology, what the colors mean, what the shapes mean of the layers that are turned on and are being shown in the map. A couple of other features. To see the layer properties, you can click on a layer and this panel on the right will show up, and that also shows you the symbology. There's a little tool to change the transparency, which is really helpful if you've got a lot of layers showing at once. If they're all, zero transparency and there's one that like covers the whole state, then you can't see anything else. So that's a tool that folks use often to kind of customize what they're looking for. The zoom. So there's little buttons on the bottom right side of the map, the plus or minus, that you can click, or you can use the scroll situation on your mouse and do it that way. And you can keep track of our progress. This is a screenshot of our GitHub project that's associated with the user manual. And this is where we keep track of everything that we want to do, all the ideas that come in, and it's publicly accessible, so you can see what's going on. If you have a GitHub account, you can submit an issue, or you can use the form, whatever makes sense to you. And like I said, this is mainly moved forward when we have interns and fellows. So this is also a communication tool. So when a new person comes in, they can kind of check out what's been in progress and start there, and then kind of work backwards. Or they'll say, hey, I really am interested in tribal foods. Let me try and find a layer on that, and that can move forward. And you can also see the things that we've done of late. And I think, oh yeah, so things that I'm hoping to update on my own in the next couple of weeks are, if any, I'm going to check the survey in the next couple of days. And if any new recommendations come in, then I'm going to add those to the project board. The default view is funky, so I'm going to switch that when folks first open the map. The layers are not as organized as I'd like. So I'm going to move those around, stuff like that. I'm going to work on, and then doing the manual updates. So those are the things that hopefully will be done in the next month or two. And then as we get fellows, that's when we add new data and new resources and things like that. But I'm going to tidy it up a little bit as it gets passed from fellow to fellow. Some things fall behind, but that's okay. And as I mentioned, I'd love to get your feedback. You all are awesome climate data experts and know about, the data that's available and that might be useful and impactful for tribes to have access to. So you can complete the survey. I always love making new friends, meeting new partners. Feel free to shoot me an email. We can set up a meeting. Or if you're active in the California Issues Work Group, keep an eye out when I have a presentation. Or if there are other tribal spaces where you think this information should be shared, please let me know. I'm happy to present whenever and wherever I can. And that's, I think, it. I wanted to save a little bit of time for discussion. Hopefully I didn't get too crazy, take too much time.
Thank you so much, Anna. Does
And
anybody have questions?
I saw something in the chat.
Oh, that was just me mainly asking for links.
Oh,
So yeah,
yes.
if you could drop the best ones, that's always helpful. And my little girl is using my phone right now, so I couldn't do the QR code. I do have a question though, and a lot of times, and I know everybody's got sketchy internet today, but it's nice to go into the map and kind of fiddle around and like dive in. Oftentimes we'll just go look at Paula because Paula is the lead on the Tribal Climate Health Project and just see, like, let's just see what could Paula get out of this mapping tool, because it sounds great, and I'm trying to understand. I'm looking at it through the lens of like, how would I use this for resilience or adaptation planning? How can this help me overcome some blind spots in the planning process?
Yeah.
And one big question I was having while you're talking, it sounds mainly focused on water quality and wondering to what extent there's water supply information in here.
It doesn't have to be. There's like information on oil and gas wells and mines, and there's lots more than just water data, because as we all know, it's all interconnected. And so tribes working on water are also working on air and fire and climate and health and all of that stuff. So we try and provide everything as much as we can without overloading the system, right? If we have all of the data in the world on the map, then it's going to take 10 years to open. So like we need to like balance those types of needs. Yeah. We have some drought intensity information, but yeah, any data that is helpful to a tribe at all of these layers. The ideas have come from tribal folks, and we have regular meetings with Sarah where we'll have a conversation at the California Issues Work Group, and someone said, I want something on drought or fire, but they don't have a specific link. And so that's where our fellows come in. They do an internet and find what they find, and we'll bring it back to Sarah and our partners and say, what do you think about this? Is this kind of what we're looking for? Should we keep looking? So yeah, there can be lots of different types of data here. And we do have Cal Virus Screen for our OEHA friends on the call.
Is there a layer that has how much water?
That I
know that's not your.
It's in the water board's realm, and there's a lot of data types like water quantity, but like the data is not publicly accessible, or the data that is publicly accessible isn't actually useful.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't
This is
exist
what
yet.
it makes sense.
And
This
so
is why I was saying
that's
we're like, oh, sorry. This is why we're saying this is such a big priority for us in this coming years, because you kind of walk down this road and people are like, oh yeah, well, that data exists, go here, and then you try and it's a total nothing burger, right? Like there for the supply, on the supply side. And I think it's just a really hard question to answer. But if I were to ask a question of this data set, I would be asking, please tell me what indicator of water insecurity you might have. Like, tell me, if I'm doing Paula's next iteration of his adaptation plan, at what year is Paula going to have a, severe water shortage in its groundwater basin, or its aquifer recharge levels, or its stream flow? Like, when do things start to become so scary that we need to start planning and preparing now?
Yeah, and actually one request that came from Shasta was understanding Superfund sites, because that's helpful in understanding like where the Paula EPA should be monitoring or focusing priorities. And so that request came in a couple of years ago and has been added to the map to answer those types of planning related questions. And so pesticides, I think, was something that Sarah wanted. And so that was a great example of Sarah provided a link to a resource that she used, but like the data was locked up in PDFs, and getting it into a publicly accessible format would have been like brain numbing. So we had to like find a different resource, but it's not updated as regularly as we would like. So it's those sorts of like problem solving challenges that we work on with our fellows and with our tribal partners. And if this is something that lights your fire and you want to be a co-creator of this, we're always looking for more insight and feedback and expertise. So I'd love to invite you to join the team if that's something you're interested in.
I love your GitHub side too. That's really helpful.
Yeah, it's for me, it's important to be transparent about what we've heard from folks and how we're making progress. Admittedly, we're not making as much progress as people would probably like, because we also have limitations in bandwidth and capacity.
Mm-hmm.
But if a request comes in, you can, if you aren't familiar with GitHub, that's totally okay. You can click on one of those links. They're called issues, and you can see progress, who's working on it, if there's any notes or comments. So this is an example. The website isn't GIS compatible. We can't add it, so maybe we should go with something else. So you can kind of see the thought process and conversations that we're having. And for anything here, I think the tribal foods layer is another example of this is something that came in, but we haven't really been able to make progress on it because that data doesn't exist publicly, for very good reasons sometimes, right? But I don't want to not have it shown as a request, because it's important to know that someone wants that somewhere. And so it's like in our brains, it's something to keep an eye out for if and when that does become available.
Yeah, the wetlands and historical wetland maps. I think that's really interesting. That's going to be an interesting layer to find.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And anything that shows how much, because I know it is, one, difficult to find, and two, a moving target.
Yes.
But it certainly is interrelated.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is.
Absolutely.
And like the tribes that we work with often, if they had the right information, it probably would rise to one of the most critical climate impacts that they need to be preparing for. But because we don't have the information, we don't prioritize it as highly as we should.
Right.
But that's at least my hunch after doing lots of adaptation plans. Was like, if I knew, I could tell you with certainty, I would compel your decision makers to be acting now. But I have no, without a $150,000 hydrological study, I don't know.
Right.
Well, I'm up in Region 1, and they're doing a voluntary well monitoring program to determine quantities up here. So if that's where we are for non-tribal entities,
Yeah.
the tribes are maybe hosed.
Yeah. So, Anna, it would be awesome to work with you as we're just trying to identify where are the best, like the water supply data sets. Like, let's just understand the best that we have, knowing that it's not going to be as good as we want. And then I just think there's a role for the Tribal Climate Health Project to be raising this issue at a bigger level. Like, this is a big one that the state of California really needs to kind of maybe develop some more data around and figure out, not just for tribes, but for everybody, but certainly for tribes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a water board. You can see my internet's capacity. There's a water board's data and databases webpage. That might be helpful as a place to start. It's a couple of years old. There's also data.ca.gov that Isabel put in the chat, which is an open data portal for all California agencies. But the water board's data and databases shows publicly available data sets from the water boards and links to like how to access them. If we can ever get there. Many of those should be on the open data portal, but not all of them are yet. That's something that we're working on. So yeah, so that might be a place to start in terms of what's accessible at the water boards, but happy to continue to work together to find the data, work with our internal partners to make it publicly available. That's our jam here in OEMA is getting the data. Our director refers to himself as the data liberator for the water board. So that's something important to us.
Thank you so much, Anna.
Great to work with you on it. So I find myself lost usually. I'll start with a URL and then I go hunting and then I end up in a dead end. Or you know what often happens, say if it's Polygon, there's not a water station nearby that's been monitored in the last 30 years. So it's just, there's just nothing to work with. And if that's the case, if that's just the status of raw data, then that's the message is like, well, we need a better way to at least proxy or estimate water supply somehow in California, give communities a chance. Okay, I have harped on that long enough. Thank you, Anna. Everything is great. And that's super cool that it's so interactive and people have a chance to submit their input.
Thanks, y'all.
Yeah, Lori, do you want to move us into the next piece?
Yeah, I just I'm not sure who's here, and with everybody's dealing with the fires today, it might not be the best time, but if people are with federal agencies that might need support during the next administration, or have ideas of how to support federal agencies during the next administration, I just wanted to save a little bit of time to have a brief discussion of that. And you can just pop in if you wish. Or not.
Well, I saw Bryce come on camera. I was thinking maybe you're thinking of this.
Yeah, no, I just coming off camera to show that I'm more available now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe LCI is not the right agency to be trying to do a big download of federal climate data. I don't know if you know of any agencies in California that are trying. I know EPA is the one that's probably, it definitely disappeared last time, went dark.
Didn't I forget the name of the authority in Canada, but there was one that jumped in immediately to just start being a mirror and sucking up all of the climate data that you get. It started, I think, with the USGS and EPA, and they just started storing the data for the US, which I thought was pretty cool because, Canadians.
That is cool.
It was like in early 2017. I mean, I just remember being in a chat group and them chiming in. I mean, guys, might have been their National Academy. Let's just ask the Canadians. Yeah.
Yeah, this topic came up at the American Society of Adaptation Professionals, a meeting I was in recently, ASAP. Kind of talking about like, I don't know if this federal government's ever not going to be so volatile, and kind of going back and forth, but we keep investing majorly in the data development when we can, only for it to disappear. And wouldn't it be great if the United States had some non-governmental entity that could store and manage these data sets that doesn't go away? And I don't know that one exists, but I think we need one. Yeah, I wonder if anybody has insights on what will disappear. What that you use is gonna go away, and are you doing anything about it? I remember we were just starting, well, we were early stages of the Tribal Climate Health Project, and that's when the first Trump administration happened, and we got a lot of our dollars clawed back, and then I was busy trying to develop curriculum, somewhat based on what was available through the EPA at the time. That's where the dollars were coming from, and then it just all paused, and so you couldn't rely on it. It all just went got outdated day by day. And but I don't find myself going to the EPA much for data at this stage. I go mainly to data tools, and I'm trying to think of the federal tools. I mean, CDC, I don't imagine CDC going away. Their National Environmental Public Health Tracking System is something I use pretty regularly, and I know there was all these efforts federally to try to do the one stop or like the umbrella climate resilience data set, and I don't know that it ever actually went live.
I
Well,
know that like the Bureau of Indian Affairs, I believe it was the tribal climate resiliency, like where Coral Avery works. I had a meeting with them earlier this week, and I know that they're prepping for the Trump administration by changing their name to Tribal Community Resilience instead. And they're trying to be pretty strategic about how they frame the work that they're doing in climate spaces to survive the Trump administration. So I think people are trying to be pretty proactive before he officially is inaugurated. But yeah, we'll see how things go, I guess.
yeah. I mean, what about in your office, Bryce, with the climate assessment? Are there federal data sets that you rely on? And I'm sure there are. I mean, at least the National Climate Assessment is pretty important. It's at least done for now, the fifth one.
Yeah, totally. I know we maybe like more like the data heavy sections of the fifth assessment are diving into federal data points. I think our hope is to download like files and store them within our own like roundhouse, or I guess as like PDFs. And so in case data changes or gets removed, people can still access that via our own websites. We're still figuring out exactly how we want to do that though, and what the best practices there are. And so if people have recommendations for how that's worked in the past, like, yeah, all ears.
So Bryce, just asking, if the source data set went poof tomorrow, you guys still have a copy of the data, or do you link to your URL?
I don't think we have like a copy of the data just yet. I think we're trying to figure out what our next steps are for downloading that data into a PDF. So then it's not just a link to a URL that the federal government could change, right?
And why download it to a PDF? Why not download it to a data set? I'm just curious.
Well, I guess like a internal data set, like
Okay.
as long as it's not just linking to the federal government's website.
Right.
So
right.
yes,
Okay.
it can be housed into like our own data set or our own website, whatever we think. But we're not technically positive about how we want to do that, and I think we're leaving some of these options open for the regional report authors for the fifth assessment to decide how they want to do this on their own. But I think it could be a good conversation to have coming together as like all of the different regional and topical report teams to have this conversation. So you got me thinking.
Yeah,
Yeah,
imagining some of what you're referencing could poof.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's unfortunate at this stage. Okay, well, it's good to know that you guys might be a place to go. Like if some of us down the line are like, oh, this thing used to exist and it doesn't, we can at least ask you, hey, did you grab it?
Mhm.
Okay, well, let's keep thinking about that. Our next meeting's going to be on March 12th. And wanted to put out a shout out in case anybody wanted to suggest any speakers. One suggestion had been to talk about eDNA.
What's that?
Good question. I'm gonna find out in March, I think, unless somebody has another idea.
My understanding is like it's environmental DNA, right? Where they can sample a water source and figure out what kind of critters have been in that area based off of the DNA available in the water source. So from like saliva samples or what, but I'm guessing Anna might have a better answer.
Well, yes, Brez. Thanks for reading my body language. Yeah, so we actually have a tribal environmental DNA project at the water boards, and we regularly partner with tribes and give out kits. It can eDNA for our project is usually sampled from water, and it tells you presence or absence. It doesn't really tell you like how many fish or bugs or whatever you're looking for. But it can tell you what has been present according to a certain period of time. And we regularly give kits to tribal partners and they do the collections and then we pay for the analysis and do the data management piece. So I will add a link to our eDNA hub. And if you're interested in a speaker, I can reach out or connect Lori and Angie with Lindsay Metz, who's our project lead for that, if you want another swampy presentation, but there's lots of other folks in the eDNA space in California that she might be able to reach out to too.
And I think Sarah's been doing some eDNA work. Is that your?
I think Big Valley has been part of our work, but you know, Big Valley is just awesome sauce, and they do a lot more than what they do with our partnership with us. So I'm sure that Sarah's done more than what I'm aware of.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And if anybody else has ideas for speakers, are welcome to email me or drop it in the chat.
I think a couple of things that came up earlier today, down the line, whenever it makes sense and it's ready, I think Ben wants to present on what we learned about data gaps, and we'll present with our friends at PHI about the California Healthy Places Index tool for tribes on extreme heat. So yeah.
You think that'll be ready by March, Ange?
Let's find out. Let's find out.
Okay.
And then the other one, actually two more things. I know Aleha's also working on an extreme heat tool. I know Walker was talking about wanting to get some insight and input on it. And then Bryce, you guys are with the climate assessment. I don't know if there's anything you might like to bring, but you're welcome to. Okay.
And Angie, I think for our interview and analysis data, I think we'll just we can schedule it once we've checked everything back through all the advisors themselves and done that process to make sure that everything is looking good and we heard the right things. But I think once we get the approval from them to share more broadly, that this would be a perfect place to give preliminary findings, get feedback, do all the things and really make it a collaborative process and get a lot of great input.
Yeah, perfect.
Great. Thank you all so much.
Thanks again, Anna.
Thanks, y'all. Good to see you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye. Be safe today.